Hi, Sudarshan. Good morning. Good evening.
Good evening, Madhu. Yeah, I think if you want to start, 4 o'clock now, or wait for
Yeah,
a few minutes, up to you.
yeah. 2 minutes, 1 minute, 2 minute.
Yeah, 2 minutes will wait.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, Sudarshan, let's get started. Yeah. Let me get my
Yeah,
computer
sure.
adjusted. I've got a lot of IT issues this week, so let's see what happens. Okay. Badram Karnebihi Shrunyama Devaha Badram Pashyema Akshabihi Yajtraha Sthirairangair Tushtuvam विषेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्तिनः इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्तिनः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्तिनः तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्तिनो बृहस्पतिर्ददातु यो अन्तः प्रविश्य मम वाच इमां प्रसुप्तां सञ्जीवयति अखिलशक्तिधरस्वदाम्नान्यांश्च हस्तचरणश्रवणत्वगादीन् प्राणान्नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यं लसतु श्रीमदानन्दतीर्थेन्दुर्नो हृदम्बरे यद्वचश्चन्द्रिका स्वान्तसन्तापं विनिकृन्तति पदवाक्यप्रमाणज्ञान् प्रणम्य शिरसा गुरून् व्याकरिष्ये यथाभूतं विष्णुतत्त्वविनिर्णयं देवं नारायणं नत्वा सर्वदोषविवर्जितं परिपूर्णं गुरुंश्चान् गीतार्थं वक्ष्यामि लेशतः. So good evening. So today is the ninth in series on chapter 15. Now we are reaching a very interesting part of chapter 15. I think the next two verses are quite interesting. It actually sets the scene for the last five. So please watch the first two verses here quite carefully, and let's have an interactive session like last week, and hopefully we should be able to finish this on time today. Okay. So just to remind you, like we have always done, we have done 13 verses over the last 2.5 months. We have done 13 verses of chapter 15. Two and a half, the first two and a half is about Prakriti. The next two and a half is for the souls as to what they need to do. Then verses 6 to 11 is about the Swarupa or the nature of the Supreme. Verse 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. They all talk about what is his nature and how does he do things and stuff like that. So please go back to the previous lectures, pick up your books, pick up as it is book or any other book that appeals to you, and try and ruminate this again and again, because chapter 15, and for that matter any chapter in Bhagavad Gita, it is something that you just can't, we can't just get the grasp of it with just glancing through once or twice, and we just need to keep doing it again and again. So please do go back and pick up these books and have a read through from verse 6 to 11 and their meanings. Now, last week we sort of started the verse 12, 13, and 12, 13. We kind of made pravesha of those verses to discuss and talk about the Sarva Antaryamitva of the Supreme. That this chap, this Brahman, who is also called Vishnu, who is also called Krishna, he has actually pervaded all of his creation. So we are in that portion of chapter 15 where we are trying to do upasana or contemplation as to how we mortals who are living in this earth, who are living in this world, how do we have to contemplate his sarva antaryamitva. So the verse 12 said, Yat aditya gatam che tejo jagat bhasayate akilam yat chandramasi yat chagno tat tejo viddi mamakam. So there Krishna said that, the light of the sun, the light of the moon, the light of the fire, these lights do not happen spontaneously. They happen because I make it so, because I have pervaded these things and I make sure they operate it in such a way. And when we look at Adi Deva interpretation, we said, inside the sun is the Surya Devata, inside Agni is Agni Devata, and inside Chandra is Chandra Devata or Soma. And they all operate because I am actually inside them as their Antaryami, and I'm making them do stuff. Now, in Katha Upanishad, it also, besides these three entities, the Katha Upanishad also talked about Vidyut, which is lightning. And it says the lightning works not because the lightning spontaneously happens. It is just that I make it so that the lightning operates in this way. Yeah. So lightning, we all know Indra, for example, and I am inside Indra and I'm making Indra operate it in such a way. So he's asking us to think about every component of what we do. So when you step out of your house, when you go to the backyard in your house, when you get into that car and you drive and you see things, he is asking you to remind yourself that behind everything is me who is actually making it operate. And we have dwelt this verse from Acharya several times when he says, Bahuchitra Jagat Bahuda Karanat Parashaktihi Ananta Gunaha Paramaha. So Bahuchitra Jagat. So when you go out and see the various components of this earth, the stars, the moon, the sun, the fire, and everything else, besides having that awe and wonder about how nature operates, please also let us try and understand that the nature operates this way because the Supreme, who is pervaded inside the nature, actually makes it so. He makes it operate like this. And when we are in awe and wonder about the nature of the creation, we always remind ourselves how wonderful must be the Creator himself. So the whole concept of Sarva Antaryamitva is essentially to bring home the message to us. So this guy is the eternal witness and he is there everywhere. And it is the foundation of Sanatana Dharma that there is this supreme consciousness that has pervaded all of creation. Yeah. So that is a key concept that we need to hold on when we are doing chapter 15 and verse 12 to 15. So now we are going to go to verse 14 and verse 15. So I'm going to pause for 10 seconds and I'm going to ask one of our friends to recite verse 14 and verse 15, please. Any volunteers, just raise your hands and just start off with 14 and 15, please. Who is going to do that?
Okay. Madhu, I'll do it if no one else.
Yeah, please.
Aham Vaishvanaro Bhutva Praninam Dehamashritah Pranapanasamaयुक्तः Pachamyannam Chaturvidham Sarvasya Chaham Hridhi Sannivishtaः Mattasmritirjnanamapohanancha Vedaischa sarvairahamev vedya Vedanta Videva chaham.
Thank you, Gita ji. That was very beautiful. So this 14 and 15. The 15th verse, as you can see, is a little bit longer and understandably so. And hopefully we'll spend a good 30-40 minutes talking about verse 15. So let's make some entry. So last week, when we discussed verse 14, what did Krishna say? Here he was talking lots of things about the Gam avishya cha bhutani dharayami aham vojasa pushnami cha aushadhihi sarvaha somo bhutva rasatmakaha. He said in this earth, when you have all this food, the crops and the crops that you grow, the herbs that you grow, now these are all, they become annam, they become your food, and you eat that food. And because of that food, you are able to grow from childhood to adulthood. You grow and you grow your faculties. And the Purusha that you are at this point of time, the material body that you have is directly related to the annam that you eat. And that annam is directly related to Oshadis. Oshadis are the food, the plant foods that you eat that actually sustain and nourish your body. And he says, all these things, I only make sure that they happen. I ensure that the rain happens. I ensure that the plants grow. I ensure that the moon influences the water table. And I ensure that the plants grow and so on. And immediately when he has said that, when he has said, Oshadihi sarvaha somo bhutva rasatmakaha, the Oshadihi, the food. When he has said that I am responsible for the food on earth, he immediately reminds you, Aham Vaishwanaro Bhutva Praninam Dehamashritaha Prana Apana Samayuktaha Pachami Annam Chaturvidam. So last week, the tail end of last week, we spent some time talking about Aham. And I introduced that word Aham before because this particular verse starts off with Aham. And we discussed about what this Aham actually means. So can I ask somebody to remind us what was the concept of Aham that we discussed about? Besides Aham saying I am, there is deeper philosophical meanings of Aham. So who is going to explain that to us, for all of us today, please? What did we understand by the word Aham? Any volunteers, or shall I just pick one? Okay, Eric, silence there. So Aham of Vedas.
Madhu?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, go on.
Does it mean that something it cannot be separated from, or like the body and the soul of God that cannot be separated from or can't live without?
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Nita. Yes, you're right. So an aspect of what you said is absolutely right. So we need to expand that idea a little bit further. So aham in a very colloquial Sanskrit, aham means I am. Okay. But the Vedic Sanskrit, the Vedic language is a lot more complicated than just aham. If I just say I am, and I just say, if Krishna says aham means I am Vaishwanara Bhutva, yes, fine, no problem. I am the Vaishwanara. I am inside that Vaishwanara, no problem. That is fine. But when you take the etymology of aham, and this aham comes so often in so many Upanishads, and we discussed about Brihadaranyaka Upanishad last time, and we said how that Aham Brahmasmi has an entirely different Vedic philosophical meaning. Yeah, it is travesty to philosophy to say Aham Brahmasmi there means I am Brahman. That is most unfortunate, because if one does that, one will not be able to capture the inner spirit of what the Rishi is telling there about Aham. So the basic meaning of Aham is a secret name of God. Yeah, it is one of his names. Brahma is one of his names. Asmi is one of his names. Now a few weeks ago we discussed about Asmi. Asmi is his name as Ahmi. Ahmi comes in Zoroastrianism. When you read Zen Avesta, Ahmi is a name of God. In Zen, in Zen Avesta, which is the holy book of the Zoroastrians of Persia, they worship sun, they worship fire, and one of the names of fire is Ahmi. Yeah. Now Ahmi comes from Asmi. Asmi is a Sanskrit word, and as words evolve, Asmi becomes Ahmi in Persian. Now, Brahma, we all know who Brahma is. Bruhanto hi asmin gunaha iti Brahma. Brahma means is a name of Brahman. Brahman means supreme being. Similarly, Aham is also a name of God. And basically, the etymology of Aham comes like this. Heya means that which can be discarded. Yeah. Heya means that which is discardable. Okay. So, Hanyamanatvat Ham. Ham comes from Heya. Hanyamanatvat, that which can be discarded is called ham. Now you put a prefix, it becomes the opposite of that. So aham then becomes that which cannot be discarded. That which is indiscardable is aham. So aheyatvat aham nama. So this supreme being is called aham. Now, why are we called aham? I am aham because that aham is inside me and he is making me what I am. Yeah. Because that aham namaka paramatma is there inside me, that is why I am called aham. I am. Yeah. So that I am is a very superficial meaning. So when you take aham as the name of the supreme who is inside the jivas and giving them their self identity, yeah, giving them that aham for the jivas, so that aham, the ultimate, that is called, this is called parama mukhya vritti. If you remember our Brahmasutra sessions that we did, so when you look at the parama mukhya vritti as described in the Vedas, that aham then becomes the name of the supreme. Now again, when you look at Upanishads, you will see ahaha. So there are two names for the supreme that is given. He is called aham and he is also called ahaha. In so many in Vedas, in so many suktas, in Upanishads, you will come across this word ahaha. Okay, and the rishis say ahaha is the supreme lord. Aham is also a supreme lord. Why? Aham is inside the jivas, and as I said before, that aham is undiscardable. Can we get rid of this paramatma who is inside us? First point. Can we get rid of ourselves in the first case? Can I make sure that I do not exist? Can I discard myself? No, I can't discard myself because that undiscardable is inside me. That is why I cannot, get rid of myself. And you cannot get rid of the supreme being. He is everywhere in his creation. So that aham and ahaha directly is the meaning of the Narayana Sukta. So Yajurveda, there is a beautiful sukta called Narayana Sukta. So that the fifth mantra of that is Antar Bahishta Tat Sarvam Vyapya Narayana Stitaha. Yeah, so if you look at Ramanujacharya's Bhashya there, it's very beautifully described how Antar Bahishta Tat Sarvam. Yeah. Antaha means inside, Bahishta means outside, Tat Sarva means everywhere. Yeah, Vyapya means pervaded, Narayanaha means Vishnu, Stitaha means that is his position, that is what is his definition. Antar Bahishta Tat Sarvam Vyapya Narayanaha Stitaha. And that exactly is what aham and ahaha actually mean. Now, when you look at Taittiriya Upanishad, in the tail end of the Taittiriya Upanishad, there is a very beautiful verse. This is Sayashchayam Purushe Yashchaso Aditye Sa Ekaha. Okay, so you need to watch this very carefully. What the Rishi is saying there. Sa Yashcha Ayam Purushe. Ayam means what? We discussed this before. Ayam means that which is in front of me. Okay, so this jiva, this rishi who is actually seeing this Brahman, he is saying, Saha yaha cha ayam purushe. This fellow who is in front of me, Yashcha asau aditya. Asau means that one that is there far off from me. What is that one? That one is the aditya, the sun that I see every day. Who is inside that sun? That sun inside the Surya Narayana who is inside the sun. Sa ekaha. They are both the same. Sa yashtayam purushe yashtaso aditye sa ekaha. Again, building up on the concept of aham and ahaha. If you look at the Antaryami Brahmanam of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, which again we touched upon last week, and there are beautiful mantras, there are several mantras that talk about this. Yaha sarveshu bhuteshu tishten sarvebhyo bhutebhyo antaro yam sarvani bhutani na vidhu yasya sarvani bhutani shariram yaha sarvani bhutani antaro yamayati yeshata atma antaryami amrutaha. Such a profound statement by this rishi who says, Yeshata Atma Antaryami Amrutaha. That one who is inside you is called Antaratma. He is Amrutaha. He is the eternal. The same thing, the Brahmanam also in the same series of mantras, it says, yeah, Adishte Tishtan Yad Aditya Antaro, and it goes on and says, Yeshata Atma Antaryami Amrutaha. Even inside the sun, it is the same Antaryami who is there. So the reason why I had to spend some time talking about this is this particular view, this particular concept is, you will see it again and again in most of the big Upanishads of talking about this aham and ahaha, talking about this antaryami who is here in you, in yourself, and the same antaryami who is everywhere. And the rishis constantly remind us. Now, what is the tragedy here? When we study the Upanishads and when we read this, it sounds so beautiful. But as soon as we have done our studies and go out and do our mundane transactions in this world, we forget this. We forget this, that there is the supreme witness who is always watching over us. We forget about that. And that is one of the reasons for all the problems that we have in our lives. So the rishis in their Upanishads and in Gita, they remind us again and again this central concept of Vedanta of Antaryami. So this is what this whole 12 to 15 is all about, Sarva Antaryamitva. And the very first word of verse 14 starts with Aham, which is very significant because of this. So the next word again, as we discussed before, every word and the subsequent words that are placed in Gita and the previous verses and the following verses are all logically related with each other. So if you go to the next word, it's called Vaishwanaraha. Okay, so then it says aham vaishwanaraha. Okay, so I'm going to pause there for a minute to get some ideas as to what people views are, what people think is vaishwanaraha. You would have certainly heard about this word. So can I have some contributions here, please? Sorry, we can't hear you. Who's that? Is that Suresh? You want to raise your microphone, or?
Is it the digestive principle, Madhu?
Yeah, so Vaishwanaraha is the digestive principle. Very good. So we'll talk about the digestive principle. But the question here is, why does he say Aham Vaishwanaraha? Okay, so now the beauty of the beauty of Krishna Gita and the beauty in which Veda Vyasa has written Bhagavad Gita is, every word, as we have discussed before, like every word in Vedas and Upanishads, has to be split open. So Vaishwanaraha, how do you split Vaishwanaraha? If you take it as a Rudi Artha, Ruda means as a whole it's Vaishwanaraha, and as how Sureshji mentioned, it could mean the gastric principle. But that is true, but there is also a lot of other beautiful interpretations of that. Now you can break open Vaishwanaraha. You can open Vaishwanaraha to Vaishwanara Bhutva. So Aham Vaishwanaro Bhutva becomes Aham Vaishwanaraha Bhutva. Okay, so what is Shwa? What is Shwa in Sanskrit? Who is going to tell us what Shwa is? There is a clue there with the figure there as well.
Tomorrow?
No,
Dog.
breath.
Dog.
Okay, so Neetaji is saying dog. Who was somebody else contributed? Who is that?
They will.
Hi. So they will. Sorry, can you?
I'm saying breath.
Shwasana. Okay, fine. Anybody else? Okay, so in this context, aham vai means in Sanskrit, when you have the word, when you have any word vai is kind of an exclamation, definite. It is very authentic. That is the kind of meaning. Aham vai, shwa naraha bhutva. Shwa means dog. Nara means what? Humans. So when you use that, when you have now understood what that aham actually means, aheyatvat aham nama, as an antaryamin, I am there in everything. So what Krishna picks up is, he picks up two animals. He picks up Shwa and he picks up Nara. And he says, Aham vai Shwa Nara Bhutva. I am inside a dog and I am also inside a human being. Yeah, as Antaryamitva. And I am the same. Yeah, I am the same Antaryamin who is also inside a dog, which is called Shwa in Sanskrit. Nara is humans. So that should remind you that word aham vaishwanaro bhutva, aham vaishwa naraha bhutva should remind you of chapter 5, verse 18. It is a beautiful verse, chapter 18. So I'm going to ask one of our friends here to recite verse 18. So who is going to go for verse 18, please, chapter 5? Go for it. I need to wake you guys up.
Shall I do, Rohitji? I mean, sorry, Madhurji.
Yeah, we are all the same. Yeah, go for it. Go for it, Sheilaji. Welcome back.
Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini Shuni Chaiva Shvapake Cha Pandita Samadarshinaha.
Thank you very much. Again, very beautifully sung. So look at that verse. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavi Hastini Shuni Chaiva Shvapake Cha Panditaha Samadarshinaha. So this Pandita means the real knowledgeable one, the Aparoksha Jnani, who actually sees the Antaryaman, Samadarshinaha. He sees everything equally. Yeah. So what is that? I've got a question there. So let's look at this verse very carefully. There are three types of human beings and three types of animals that are described here. So who is going to tell me what are the three types of animals? So Sheilaji, do you want to take this on?
Elephant and cow and dog.
Yeah, thank you very much. Wonderful. And three types of human beings. So the
learned.
Brahmana, Vidya
Yeah,
Vinaya
learned.
sorry,
Sampanne.
Harish, go on. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say learned and dog eater.
Harish, do you want to take this on? The three types of humans that are being described here.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Okay. So I was saying Pandita is learned, and then I didn't get the third one. Shvapake is dog eater.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to see which the third. Is there a third one?
Okay.
So there's
Okay, so the three types
Yeah.
of humans that are described there, or jivas, I wouldn't say humans, three types of jivas, are the jivas who are in the right direction, and two are in the right direction, the other one is the lowest. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne, that is the highest knowledgeable ones. Yeah. Then Brahmane, these are the ones who have read something and think that they know something. And then you have Shvapake, as you said, Shvapake or the dog eaters. So there are the three. So in the Vedic times, and again, this is interesting. In the Vedic times, again, they had a classification of people who they will look down upon. People who ate dog's meat were considered in the society at that point of time to be of the lowest of humans, the ones that eat dog meat. Okay. Then you have Brahmane, or the ones who do some studies and think that they know something. And the Vidya Vinaya Sampanne, or the highest of the humans who have lots of knowledge and insight. So that is the gradation. Then you look Gavi is cow, Hastini is the elephant, Shuni is the dog. And even there is a reason why Veda Vyasa has put those three animals. Gavi is the most sacred of animals, most sacred, at least in Hindu faith. In Sanatana Dharma, Gavi is the most sacred animal. Hastini, or the elephant, is the most powerful animal. In those Vedic times, where elephants used to be used in warfare, as you know, and also to lift heavy goods and pull a lot of heavy things. So those elephants are the strongest. And then Shuni is the dog, which was considered as one of the lower levels of animals. And there Krishna has said the Pandita, the knowledgeable, Samadarshinaha. So now that should give you a clue. The Pandita, the one who knows the philosophy of the Gitas and the Vedas and the Upanishad, three types of human beings and three types of animals similarly. The question there is, how and why should such a learned person see all these things similarly? Who is going to answer that question mark there, please? So Jamuna here has given the answer, saying that he sees all of them similarly because aham vai shwa naraha bhutva. Yeah, this antaryami is sitting there in all of them. That antaryami is the same antaryami who is ahaha, who is aham, antarbahishta tat sarvam vyapya narayana stitaha. That same Narayana is the difference between his Mula Rupa Narayana, his Vyuha forms, his Avatara forms, or his Bimba Rupa forms or Antaryami forms that are there in infinite Jivas. There is no iota of difference, and that is the reason why the Pandita will see all these living beings same at the same level, not because their Jiva Swarupa is the same. No, the Jiva Swarupa is always different, but the Antaryami who is inside the Jiva is the same. So again, this verse, I've just put this verse because when you look at Aham Vaishwa Naraha Bhutva, the Shwapaka and Shuni that comes in 18th verse, it again talks about this Antaryamitva who is there everywhere. Yeah. So now we are going to go into the Rudartha, or when you take Vaishwanaraha as a complete word, as it were, and as Suresh ji mentioned, that could mean a few things. And I've listed here for you that Vaishwanaraha can mean the material fire. The fire that is there in the fire sacrifice is also called Vaishwanaraha. Agni Devata is also called Vaishwanaraha. Or it could also mean the supreme being who is inside not only the material fire but also inside the fire god or Agni Devata is also Vaishwanaraha. Now this Vaishwanaraha word itself is quite significant because it's quite a complicated philosophy. And again, this is all Vedavyasa's genius. When he puts the word Vaishwanaraha, he wants us to think, look, Gita, I'm giving this to you as the essence of the Upanishads and the Vedas. When I put Vaishwanaraha there, you need to think more as to why I have put Vaishwanaraha, what kind of contemplation that you are going to do. So this word Vaishwanaraha comes in so many places. It comes in so many Upanishads. And I've just listed a few. So in Chandogya Upanishad, for example, it says Atmanam Vaishwanaram Upaste. Okay. So I've underlined that in red. Atmanam Vaishwanaram Upaste. That means this Atmanam, this Antaryami, this Atma, this Paramatma who is inside you, you have to do Upaste, means do worship or Upasane of him as Vaishwanaraha. Okay. If you go to Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, there again there is a very important verse there. Ayam Agnir Vaishwanaro Yo Yamantaha Purushe Yena Idam Annam Pachyate. Okay, so there also the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says this Agni is Vaishwanara, and who is inside you and who is digesting this food. Annam Pachyate, digesting that food. So that being inside who does this, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad labels that as Agni and then qualifies that Agni as Vaishwanara. In Rig Veda, for example, there is a similar word there as well. There is a Vaishwanaraha that comes in Rig Veda. Very first time in Rig Veda, the Supreme is celebrated as Vaishwanaraha. Now in Katha Upanishad, there are a couple of places where Vaishwanaraha comes in Katha Upanishad. Now, as we have discussed before, Gita and Katha Upanishad go together. So in Katha Upanishad, in the very first section, when our Nachiketa, his father has scolded him and he is going to Yamaloka, and he has gone to Yamaloka and he is waiting out, and he is waiting there to have Yama's darshana for 3 days. Yeah. So at that point, Yama's wife, she is saying something to Yama. So I'm going to ask a quiz there. Who is Yama's wife? What is Yama's wife's name? Any takers? So Shamala is Yama's wife. So Shamala says, Vaishwanaraha Pravishati Brahmano Gruhan. And it goes on. Basically, it says, this Brahmana, Nachiketa, he has come, he is on an empty stomach. His stomach is burning, he is hungry. He's sitting there for 3 days waiting for you, Yama. So to keep a learned person fasting without food for 3 days is such a sin. If you keep somebody hungry and you do not provide them food, their hunger, that Vaishwanaraha in them will burn you. Yeah, so be very careful. Do that food charity. That is what Shamala is saying there, and that is so relevant today in all the poverty that we see. And yesterday I was reading an article about childhood poverty, which is going to hit UK big time, and there is going to be a lot of hungry people. If you think about what Shamala is saying, don't keep anybody hungry. The burning stomach will burn you. So she advises, and she says Vaishwanaraha there. That is the first time in Katha Upanishad that Vaishwanaraha comes. Now in Mundaka Upanishad, there is another beautiful explanation of Vaishwanaraha when the cosmic principle who regulates consciousness is described. Yeah, Jagratistano Bahihi Prajnaha Saptangaha Ekona Vimshati Mukaha Stula Book Vaishwanaraha Pratama Padaha. So again there Vaishwanaraha comes, that Vaishwanaraha, that supreme principle that controls the waking state of the consciousness, and it defines, it gives an explanation of this Vaishwanaraha, which is very interesting. It says, Ekona Vimshati Mukaha. So Vimshati means 20. Ekona means 1 minus 20, which means 19. So this Vaishwanaraha has got 19 faces, and in the middle portion, in the middle of the 19 faces, Gajamukha. Okay, so there is a whole slew of philosophy around this, about this Vaishwanaraha as 19-faced form of the Supreme. So again, this as I said, this Vaishwanaraha word is so complicated, so interesting and important. And when you go in, delve into Upanishads, into various aspects in which Vaishwanaraha is described, it becomes very interesting. Look at our Badarayana, look at our Veda Vyasa. He is actually devoted a section in his Brahmasutra. Yeah, in the first Adhyaya, second Pada, he has given us so many sutras actually to define and decide what is and who is this Vaishwanaraha. It is called Vaishwanaradhikaranam. And very first sutra there is Om Vaishwanaraha Sadharana Shabda Visheshat Smaryamanam Anumanam Syaditi, and it goes on. So for those of you who are interested in these kind of dissecting Shastras out, then you can hold Brahma Sutra, you can look at all the Upanishad verses that I've given to understand what that Vaishwanaraha actually means. So this particular slide is interesting. The reason why I say that is, when you study the Shastras, we spoke about the Prasthana Trayas. Yeah, Hindu philosophy, Vedantic philosophy is based on Prasthana Trayas. So I'm going to pause there and ask, please, who is going to name the Prasthana Trayas for us today, please?
Is it Advaita, Dvaita, Advaita, Dvaita?
So those are the three types of Vedanta philosophies, but
is
these three Vedanta philosophies are based on Prasthana Trayas.
it's Upanishad,
Brahmasutra,
Upanishads, Brahmasutras, and
Bhagavad Gita.
Bhagavad Gita. Yeah.
Excellent. Yes. So you have Sutra Prasthana, Gita Prasthana, and Upanishad Prasthana. So those are the three Prasthana Trayas. So when you look at this particular verse, Aham Vaishwanaro Bhutva, basically all the three Prasthana Trayas come here. And it is really interesting because that is how Veda Vyasa is telling us that you read the scriptures. Because look at the second sutra here, Smaryamanam Anumanam Syaditi. So Smarya means, so this is another question. I put a question mark here. So I've said, what is Shruti, what is Smriti, what is Shrauta, what is Smarta? So who is going to define this? Shruti and Smriti should be easy.
Yeah, so Shruti is something that is heard and learned by hearing. Smriti is something that is memorized, and so your Puranas are Smriti. So it's your, it's transmitted through memory.
Okay.
Shrota is your ears, so how you hear, I think.
Okay.
I don't know what Smartha is.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Somebody going to contribute there. Okay, so Deval, so you're right. So Shruti means Vedas. Primarily, Shruti means Vedas. So Apaurushaya Vedas is Shrutis because they were not composed, but they are heard, and they are passed down the generations by Hearing and reciting, hearing and reciting, but originally they were always heard. They were never composed. So that is Shruti. Smriti means, yes, you're right. Smriti means memory, so you hold the memory. Puranas are Smritis because they are Paurushaya. They are composed. They are composed by somebody. So they have heard, they memorized, and they've also composed it. And people who read that memorize based on books and so on. So Smriti are composed literature. So anything that takes its evidence from Shruti is called Shrauta. And anything that takes evidence from Smriti is called Smarta. Okay. Now, here, the reason why I have put this here is Smaryamanam. This word Smarya means Smarta. Smarta means composed text. Composed text means Bhagavad Gita. Do we think, Bhagavad Gita is composed by whom? So that's the question I'm going to put here. Who composed the Bhagavad Gita?
Veda
Vedas.
Vyasa.
Vyasa.
Vyasa. So Veda Vyasa is the composer of Bhagavad Gita. So it is a Smriti text. Yeah. Now Upanishads on the left, Rig Veda, Upanishads, Mandukya Upanishad, they're all part of some Vedas. So they are all Shrutis. They are all uncomposed. So to decide what this Vaishwanara means, Veda Vyasa actually, he himself was the composer of Brahmasutra. He himself is the composer of Bhagavad Gita, gives evidence here to say, look, there is a Smriti text in Bhagavad Gita. It is called Aham Vaishwanaro Bhutva Praninam Deham Ashritaha. So here Krishna is saying Aham Vaishwanaraha. So that Vaishwanara is Krishna. That Vaishwanara is Aham. That Vaishwanara is Aham Namaka Paramatma, who is also Krishna. Yeah. So I hope this is interesting because everything is linked with each other. So the Upanishads, the Gita and the Sutra, they all kind of almost it's like Prayaga. They kind of meet here in this particular verse, which is quite interesting. And so that is the significance of Aham Vaishwanaraha. So now we understand that Vaishwanaraha, yes, is the digestive principle, as Suresh ji mentioned. What is the digestive principle? Is it the acid in the stomach? Is there a fire in the stomach when you're hungry? Of course, your stomach burns. It almost feels like there is fire in your stomach, or what is it? So now the next one here will actually give you that idea as to what it is. Aham Vaishwanaro Bhutva Praninam Deham Ashritaha. Okay. So that means I am in all these pranis. I am in their bodies. I am actually ashritaha. I have actually placed myself in their bodies as Vaishwanaraha. So now we need to look at what is that Vaishwanaraha actually means. Is it just a name of the Supreme Being, or is it something else? So that Vaishwanaraha, the etymology comes from the word called Vishwanara Sambanditvat. So what does that mean? In the previous verse, you had Pushnamicha Aushadihi. Okay, so Aushadi means food. What do we do with the food? We eat the food and it goes into the stomach. And in the stomach, what is there? Hydrochloric acid is there, and it is acidity, and it burns. It is almost like an agni, that it burns the food and helps digestion. So one view there is, it probably refers to this gastric fire. Okay. Now here is where the symbolism of the Vedanta comes in. Now when you do a yajna, when you do a Vedic sacrifice, what do you have? You have a kunda, there is a fire, and in that fire you pour in ahutis. The ahutis will usually be what you eat in your daily life. It could be the grains, it could be the ghee, it could be milk, it could be butter, it could be, not butter, the curds. It could all be what you eat that you actually pour into the fire as a ahuti. Yeah. So that is a sacrifice that you do outside. That is no different from the sacrifice that you do every day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Your body itself is a yajna kunda, and you are actually pouring all these food inside this yajna kunda. Okay. And who is actually digesting it? Who is actually consuming it? Now, this particular concept again comes in Katha Upanishad, because Katha Upanishad and Gita are related with each other. So where the second vara, so because Nachiketa was waiting outside for 3 days, Yama gives him 3 boons. And the second boon that Nachiketa asks Yama is, teach me that fire sacrifice. By knowing that fire sacrifice, I can actually attain liberation. Yeah, so that is that 14th mantra. That there's some really profound mantras in those first section of Katha Upanishad, where he asked, teach me about that yajna. So at that point, Yama says, look, there are three nachiketaha. So it's called trinachiketa. Yeah, three types of yajnas are there, my friend. One is the kunda that you build with 360 bricks. So that is one kunda. Nowadays, there is no such kundas, but on the Vedic times, you will use 360 bricks and construct a kunda, and then you do a yajna. Okay, now that is one type of yajna. Then the rishi will say there is another type of yajna where your body is a kunda, the middle portion of your body is the kunda, 360 bones, marrows, joints, they are all the kunda there, and the fire is inside in the middle. Okay, then look outside. As I said, what is there in the Purusha is also outside. There he will say, look at the sun, and you have 360 days and 360 nights around you, and you do that yajna. So this is the yajna that Yama actually teaches Nachiketa. And if you conduct your life like this, of doing yajna, the 360 bricks every day, and your body which has got 360 bones and their corresponding marrows and the joints, and every year you do this, eventually you will reach the supreme. So now we are getting an idea of the symbolism of this. Aham Vaishwanaro Bhutva Praninam Deham Ashritaha. Okay. So Krishna actually talks a lot about Gita and nutritional science. I've got a separate section with various verses that I've actually extracted from various chapters that talk about the nutritional science. About now, one aspect is the food that we put in. Yeah. The other aspect is you put that food as a sacrifice to the Supreme who is inside. Yeah. And the Krishna himself says, Pachami Annam Chaturvidam. There are 4 types of food that I make sure that it is digested. And our scriptures give a good explanation of what are the 4 types of food: Bhakshyam, Bhojyam, Lehyam, Shoshyam or Peyam. So there's one that can be drunk, one can be licked, one that can be sucked and chewed. Various types of food that you put into your stomach, they are all digested by this gastric fire, which can also be called as Vaishwanaraha. But he's asking us, is this just the gastric digestive system that digesting it, or there is some subtle underlying principle that actually makes this Oshadi digest so that your body grows? So I've got a question here. Where is the Supreme present in the body? So think about this question. Where is the Supreme present in the body? And give me some, let's have a discussion on that. Where do we think he is there?
Yeah, is he near the thymus?
Okay, one point, yes.
He moves in the body, isn't it? Depending on your state of awake, whatever, the Jagrat state or whatever. But I thought it's like described as a cave, and inside the cave is the Jiva, and inside the Jiva is the Supreme.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Anybody else who has a slightly different view?
Yeah, Madhu Sushruth here. I think he is inside all the Abhimani Devatas which are present everywhere in every part of our body. So he's everywhere.
Okay, thank you, Shushruth. Anybody else has got any view?
Heart center,
Okay.
like in the Anahata.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Harish. Anybody else? So yes, all of you are right. I think majority of us have grasped that idea that he is in that Hridaya Kamala Madhyavarti. So that is very good. I'm so pleased that everybody is now convinced that among the Dwa Suparana, the 2 birds are inside that cave. That is now ingrained in our consciousness. That is great. On top of that, what Shushruth Kulkarni said is also very important and very profound. That this Supreme Being is not only in our heart's cave, he is not only inside the Jiva. Remember that verse that we discussed again and again in Taittiriya Upanishad, Tat Srishtva Tad Eva Anupravishat. So in every component of his creation, he is inside. Is this body not his creation? Absolutely, his body is his creation. The 5 koshas that is there in this body, is that not his creation? Yes, it is his creation. So here Vyasa is asking us to also remind ourselves that he is not only in the Guha's cave, but as Shushruta said, every part of our body, if you look at eyes, so in eyes, for example, you have retina, and inside the retina you have the Surya Devata. Inside the Surya Devata is Surya Narayana. He is there. If you go to ears, you have Chandra. Inside Chandra, he is there as Soma. If you go to our tongue, it is Agni. In Agni, he is there. If you look at our hands, the Devata for this is Indra. Inside Indra, he is there. So this guy is there in every part of our body, let alone inside the jiva, inside the cave. That is very important for us, because that is the only way in which we can reach liberation. That is the prescription for us in the Vedas, that this guy is there everywhere, but you can see him as your Bibba Rupa, who is inside you. Yeah, that is important for our liberation. But the fundamental fact is the Supreme Being is everywhere in all aspects of your bodily functions and physiology. So if you look like that, if you say gastric fire, if you take the stomach, if you take the gastrointestinal tract works because the Supreme Being is inside the Devata, who is actually making that gastrointestinal system work, and that is why he is called Vaishwanaraha. So that is one way of contemplation. Now, the reason why this is important is when you read Upanishads, when you read Upanishads, there are various upasanas, Udgita upasana, prana upasana. There are endless upasanas that will come in Upanishads. So unless we have this concept that he is in all these parts of your body, he is in all the pranas, he is there, then understanding that Upanishad becomes difficult. So you need to have this concept behind you. Then when you read the Upanishads with that concept, it will make complete logical sense. Yeah. So now coming back to, I want to pull you back to this concept of how Gita talks about nutritional science. And I've got quite a few verses. I was able to pick a few, but I'm sure many of you will have a lot more verses that talks about nutrition and Gita. And that is relevant to this verse because he is the one who digests everything. We, based on our swarupas, we put various foods inside. And he is so gracious to us that he makes sure that it is all digested and he distributes this to the rest of our bodies. That is the view of the Gita. We don't have time to go through individual verses. But I have a key question here. Are humans biologically herbivorous, carnivorous, or omnivorous? I hope that elicit interesting discussions here.
I think herbivorous, but we are changed into being omnivorous and carnivorous.
Okay, yeah. So Sudarshan is saying herbivorous. Anybody has got a different view here?
I think omnivorous.
Omnivorous.
Or you think we are omnivorous? Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, shall I be slightly controversial here? If the
Sorry,
Vedic,
go on, Deval. We can't hear you.
okay, I don't know why you can't hear me.
Yeah, now I can hear you. Go on.
Yeah. No, I'm saying I'm just trying to be, not trying to be, I'll just be a bit controversial here. So in the Vedic period, there was a lot of animal sacrifice. So animals were sacrificed in the fire. So I don't know, up till now, whatever you have said doesn't, if there are 4 types of food, which are chewed, sucked, licked, or drank, I think carnivorous would also, it's not, they're definitely not just carnivorous, but could be both. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very interesting angle, Deval. Thank you for that.
According to what I read, Madhuji,
Yeah.
he can be anything because it depends on the varnas. Shudras were allowed to eat, even now they are allowed to eat non-vegetarian, that is. And Kshatriyas, when they went for war and all, they needed this meat or protein so that they will not be hungry for a long time. So it took long time to digest. But now everybody eats. I don't know about that, but Brahmanas, ate from the, I think from the homas or which they sacrificed. I don't know why they did that, but I heard that they have done. Mine is all adopted knowledge. I don't know, because whatever I have read or heard, I tell. So
yeah, so it's a so basically it's very clear. Sorry, somebody else wanted to contribute, or did I hear somebody?
Yeah, I think it may be based on the type of the jiva that may relate them to how what they eat.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Pawan. Yeah, so that's also correct. So I think it's a complex topic. And yes, the underlying Jiva Swarupa essentially will dictate what they want to do with their own lives. That is true. But it is also true that Kshatriyas are prescribed in the Shastras that they can eat meat, because they are warriors, and they need, strength of muscles to fight. So that was perfectly allowed. And there are certain other sections of societies which you don't need to eat meat to sustain. Basically, you need to keep your consumption to the bare minimum to sustain this body, so that you can do your sadhanas in this life based on what your predisposition or your jiva swarupa is. So I think we should just leave it at that. So there is a lot of discussions about whether biologically humans are herbivores or not, and I have read a lot of literature saying intrinsically humans are herbivores. There are a lot of people who will disagree with that. Some says, so we don't have canine teeth. Our GI tract is as long as like in cows, because plant food takes a lot of time to digest. You have all these kind of theories that go behind. So I just want you to make your own decision. But the fundamental issue is it is primarily related to the Jiva Swarupa, it's your prabhava and your swabhava, what your nature is, and in what environment you are grown. There are a lot of people here who are now vegans. Why are people vegans here? They have grown in an environment where everybody eats meat, but there are a lot of people who are converting themselves to vegan. What is the reason there? Is it all just a fashion and fad, or there is more to it? So it's a complex stuff, but when you talk about food digestion, these ideas should come here. And you should think about how Gita talks about the nutritional science. In chapter 17, he makes it very clear what types of food will influence your mind in what way. What is sattvika food? What is rajasa food? What is tamasika food? And how tamasika food, which meat is a tamasika food, and how it can, it's a putrid, it is a dead body, essentially. It is a non-living dead body which is putrefying, and that is being cooked and eaten. And that Krishna clearly says is tamasic food, and that influences your brain. So we can take it. If there are objections to it, I would just leave it at that. But nevertheless, Gita talks a lot about nutritional science. In chapter 6, chapter 9, and chapter 17, you can do this reference, because that becomes relevant around this, aham vaishwanaro bhutva praninam deham ashrita. So now let's come back, pull ourselves back. So now this chap who is in every aspect of the body, now he is making the food to digest. What else does he do? And he says prana apana samayuktaha. Okay, so what happens after digestion of 4 types of food? He says, the whole metabolism that is going on in your body, the digestion, the absorption, the catabolism, the anabolism, the excretion, everything I am making sure that your body operates. Okay, so many of us are, we may have some kind of a medical or biological background here. We all accept all this metabolism, absorption, and so on, and we just take it for granted. Yeah, but has anybody actually looked at it from a philosophical perspective? Why is it that our digestive system operates like this? Why is it that our triglycerides are processed like this? Our glucose goes through tricarboxylic cycle or glycolysis. Fat gets triglycerides, then fed back through acetyl CoA. Sudarshan used to be an expert in biochemistry at some point. So all these various loops that are there in metabolism, question is, yes, it's all fine from a science perspective. That talks about how things operate, but it doesn't talk about why things operate in that particular fashion. So Krishna is asking us to think about this, and he says, prana apana samayuktaha. Okay, so this prana apana is quite an interesting concept, because in the left hand side corner I've got a figure there that I speak about pancha pranas and so on. Now, to understand this prana and apana, he could have listed all the 5, isn't it? He could have listed prana, apana. So who is going to tell me all the 5 pranas, please? The main 5 pranas.
Prana, Apana, Vyana, Udana, Samana.
Very nice. Thank you very much. So there are 5 key principles, the driving forces that make the body function. If the prana tattva is not there and all the 5 components are not there, it is considered as a dead body. Yeah. So now, is it what Krishna is talking here, or whether he is talking something else? Now again, you have to find the clue in Katha Upanishad here, because there is a very, very similar verse that comes in Katha Upanishad, where Yama teaches Nachiketa and says, Urdhvam pranam unnayati, apanam pratyagasyati, madhye vamanam asinam, vishve deva upasate. That comes in the second chapter of Katha Upanishad. That is the direct verse for this particular verse. Aham Vaishwanaro Bhutva Praninam Deham Ashritaha. The next word, Prana Apana Samayuktaha, is related to Urdhvam Pranam Unnayati, Apanam Pratyag Gasyati. So that means Prana is what? Prana is that pushes up. Vyana is, Apana is what? That which pushes down. Yeah. So when you're pushing up, what is it? So that pushing up and down can give you various ideas. So this whole respiration is breathing up and down. So if you need respiration, respiration makes oxygen, and without oxygen you cannot do metabolism. You cannot survive without oxygen, because all the food that you eat is eventually digested, gets converted into it's converted into glucose in one form or the other, and then that goes to TCA and glycolysis and stuff like that. And in tricarboxylic acid cycle, you need oxygen for converting ADP to ATP, which you are all very familiar with. So that is also one view. So this whole prana apana of oxygen requiring for your metabolism. But at the same time, the prana here that is spoken about is once the food is processed and you have the various components of the food, what Krishna is saying is me present inside the prana actually will take these components of the food to various parts of your body. And he says that food is processed into 3 things. The first one is the subtle form of food that goes to the mind. Then there is the other aspect of food that goes to your bones, your muscles, your nervous system, your nerve bundles, your marrow and stuff like that. And the grossest form of what cannot be digested, then the apana fellow will take it down for urination and defecation. So these prana and apana tattvas, prana and those pancha tattvas is a bigger topic. I don't think we have time to discuss here, but Krishna has taken these 2 concepts, prana and apana, to link it with the metabolism. Or with prana, it is more an anabolic process of actually taking it to various parts of your body, whereas apana is about excretion, getting rid of through ammonia and stuff through urine and all the unwanted material through defecation. So that is apana that does it. Okay, but he reminds us, I am actually inside these guys that actually make this whole digestive process actually work. In the left hand side corner, I've got a slide here where I've shown you these 5 pranas. Yeah, there are a lot of 5s in Upanishads, and when you read it, it should raise a lot of ideas in you. So there are 5 pranas, there are 5 upapranas, then there are 5 koshas. Then if you take Narayana and then 4 vyuha forms, that is also 5. So when you read these Upanishads, when you do these upasanas that rishis do, they will bring in all these concepts of in prana, vyana, upana, samana, udana. There is Narayana, Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, Aniruddha. And then if you take the 5 koshas, Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manonmaya, Vijnanamaya, Anandamaya, there is Aniruddha, Pradyumna, Sankarshana, Vasudeva, Narayana. So those kind of upasanas, contemplations that will come in, because as Shushruth mentioned, this guy is not just inside the jivas, he is in every aspect of whatever he has created. So that prana apana samayuktaga again tells you that the food that you eat becomes annam. The anna that you eat, I digest it. And after the digestion, I make sure that I distribute everywhere because I'm inside everything. So again, I want to pull you back to the idea that Krishna is actually talking about antaryamitva, that is, I am inside everything. And he has taken this pindanda, he has taken your body as an example, and he's illustrating how I am actually making everything happen. Now, as soon as he said this, he said, now your point, what Sudarshan said, what Deval said, and what Manjunath Pai and Shilaji said. He says, yes, I am in all the material creation. I pervaded everything. But for your chintane, for your upasane, there is one important area where I am inside you itself, mate. And he says, Sarvasya cha aham hridi sannivishtaha. Mattaha spriti rinyahanam apohanam cha vedaishta sarve rahameva vedyo vedanta krit vedavid evechaham. So you can appreciate how Vedavyasa is logically, he is directing us for this contemplation. He spoke about Brahmanda. He spoke about Pindanda. Then in the Pindanda, he is talking about the Jivas. Yeah. So now let's pause a little bit there and talk about where is the Jiva and Brahman actually placed in the human body. So Sudarshan gave a clue there. So perhaps maybe Sudarshan can expand this further.
Which one, boss?
Where is Jiva in the body and where is supreme person in the body?
Oh, okay. I think the supreme person is in the thymus. Jiva is in the heart, isn't it? Right atrium.
Oh gosh, you're very clear, very sure about the right atrium. Why?
So, I mean, I don't know. I'm talking as if we can do the echo and even see it. Like, it's not.
Okay, that's very interesting, Sudarshan. Anybody else? Any other contributions?
They are both in the Hriday Guha.
Yeah, even I thought they are both together, same in
In the
thymus.
Hriday Guha.
Okay. So yes, Sudarshan, I'll still give you 50 marks because atrium is also part of the body and the supreme being is also in the atrium. So in that sense, yes, he is inside the atrium. So Jiva, I think I'll go with Sushrut and Shilaji, that we have, nobody has actually, you can't do echo and see, you're right. If there is an MRI of the heart or MRI or something that we can do, or a PET scan and see where is the uptake, some kind of a scan that we could do, it will be good, but you cannot do it because it is non-material. We have discussed this so many times. Jiva and Brahman, both of them are non-material. Any machines that we use is material. So we just can't see something that is non-material. So the only evidence there is we go to our Vedas and the Upanishads and the Gita and the Sutra and then ask the question, what does our scriptures tell us? Where the Jiva is, where God is. Yes, God is everywhere in the body. Jiva is only in one place and the God is inside him. And so here it is very clear I've listed quite a few Upanishads here. Katha Upanishad, 2 places it comes. Yeah, I've just now discussed this. Urdhvam pranam unnayati apanam prati gasyati madhye vamanam asinam vishve deva upasate. Madhya means middle. Vamana. This is interesting. Vamana Rupa. So Varaha we discussed Gama Vishyacha Bhutani. Now here Krishna is talking about Vamana Avatara. In the form of Vamana, I am inside. Why Vamana? Vamana means what? Vamana is something that is very small. So this guy is Anoraniyan Ato Mahiyan. So it means what? He is smaller than the smallest. So he is inside Jiva, which is smallest that we know, and inside that he is there. So that Rupa inside the Jiva is called Vamana. Okay, Madhye Vamana Masi. Now in Gita, of course, we have just done Jyotisham, Jyotishi, Tat Jyotisham, Shri, Pashyati, Jnanam, Jneyam. So there are so many verses, let's not go there. Now, Anoraniyan, Mahato Mahiyan, I've said. In Taittiriya Upanishad, I've said Brahmavid apnoti param, Tadesha abhyukta, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, Yo Veda Nihitam, Guhayam, Parame Vyoman. In that cave, he is there in Taittiriya Upanishad. Dahara Vidya of Chandogya Upanishad also says that, look here, Daharam Pundarikam Vashema. So Pundarikam is inverted lotus bud. Yeah, that is the shape of the thymus. And he is there. Okay. Prashna Upanishad then confirms God is there and he is inside the Jiva who is also in that cave. Hrudihi Esha Atma. That Atma there is Jiva Atma. Okay. So when you put all these equations together, then you will understand. You will have to also bring Shvetashvatara Upanishad here. Then you will understand there is this cave in the heart. Inside the cave is the Jivatma. Inside the Jivatma is the Paramatma. And here he says, look here, the word again, Aham is coming here. Sarvasya cha Aham, Hrudi. Aham, what did we say? Aheyatvad Aham Nama. the undiscardable. And where is that undiscardable aham there? He is inside the jiva. Where is the jiva? He is inside that heart scale. So again aham, so that aham is significant. Hrudi, this is the middle portion of the body where the thymus is. Sannivishtaha. So look at that word, sannivishtaha. And again we have said, he could have just said Vishtaha. Vishtaha means I'm there, but he didn't say Vishtaha. He said Sannivishtaha. Why? So I've broken it open for you. Vishtaha, Nivishtaha. Nivishtaha means Nitaram Vishtaha. Vishtaha means I'm there. Nivishtaha means Nitaram Vishtaha. Nitaram means always. I am always there. Nitaram Vishtaha. He didn't stop at saying Nitaram Vishtaha. He said some Nitaram Nishtaha. Some means well, very well, samyak, sampurna. There is no difference between me and others. There are so many meanings for some there, sampurna, samyak, and some stuff like that. So sam nitaram vishtaha. That is why I am called aham. Again, there is an internal clue here. So taking aham as I am is a travesty to this verse. So aham there is the name of the Supreme who is actually inside, and he is always there. He is undiscardable. Now he is taking us one step further. So we have gone to the heart, we have gone to the cave. Now there is jiva, and then there is paramatma. Then he says, look, I am here in the middle here. I am Brahman, Adhika Atma. Jiva is there, Atma. Now what is happening? Mattaha smritir jnanam apohanam cha. Inside the jiva, what I am doing for this jiva? I am giving them memory. I am giving them knowledge. And I am also giving them ignorance. These are all the three things that I am doing for them. So that is the next verse. And again, as I said, every word, every line is logically related to the next one. So when you look at that, mattaha smritir jnana apohanam cha. So mattaha means by me. Smriti, as Deval ji mentioned, is memory. Jnana means knowledge. Apohanam means ignorance. Okay. Now smriti is memory. So unless we have the faculty of memory, we will never have knowledge. Because if you can't retain something, how does it matter? You need to have the retaining power to be able to even have knowledge of something. Yeah. So that smriti and jnana go together. Apohana is ignorance, opposite of jnana. And we have all dealt with, when we did the journey of souls, we spoke so much about ignorance. And where is the ignorance? Who has got the ignorance? What is the philosophical position of ignorance? Is it real? Is it unreal? Why does God place ignorance on the jivas so that they are suffering in this world and stuff like that? We have spent enough on that. So go back to those lectures. Shvetashvatara Upanishad clearly says samsara moksha sthiti bandha hetu. He is the cause for our samsara. Skanda Purana will say bandako bhavapashena bhavapashascha mochakaha kaivalyadaha param brahma vishnureva sanatanaha. Then Mandukya Upanishad, there is a very famous verse. Anadi mayaya shuptaha yada jivaha prabudyate ajam anidram aswapnam advaitam buddhyate tada. Very controversial verse, but opens up with huge amount of philosophical discussions, essentially capturing the ideas of this. Mattaha smritir jnanam apohanam cha. I give the ignorance to the jivas so that they go into samsara. I also give them by my grace aparoksha jnana so that they can turn themselves and look at me. Yeah, so that is what he is doing inside the jivas. And then what he says is, so you have the ignorance. Now for that ignorance to go, what should you do? You should gain knowledge, isn't it? For that ignorance to go. So he picks that idea there and immediately puts that word there. Vedaishta sarvair aham eva vedyaha. Okay, so this again is beautiful, this verse. So when I say aham eva sarvaha vedaha cha vedyaha, so it has to be opened in various ways. And when you do that kind, you open individual words and place them next to each other, you will get three different concepts. So the first one is vedaihi cha evam aham vedyaha. That means I can be known only through the Vedas. Next, Vedaihi cha sarvaha ahameva vedyaha. The whole of the Vedas, okay, only celebrate me. Ahameva vedyaha. So if you split like that, Vedaishta sarvaihi, all the Vedas, ahameva vedyaha, they teach only about me. Yeah. So first one is all the Vedas. Vedas are the only way of knowing me, and all the Vedas only talk about me. So in Katha Upanishad itself, it says, Sarve Vedaha Yat Padam Amananti Tapamsi cha Sarvani cha Yad Vadanti Yat Chanto Brahmacharyam Charanti Tatte Padam Sangrahena Bravimi Om iti etad. So that's a very important mantra about how Yama talks about this. This fellow is the Om. This fellow who is sitting next to you and does all this stuff. So Sarve Vedaha Yatpadam Amananti. The whole of the Vedas only glorify and celebrate me. So that is the only way of getting that knowledge, because Apohanam I have given you. You have to make your individual efforts to know me. The third meaning, Vedaihi cha Sarvaihi Ahameva Vedyaha, which means Vedas are infinite. Even Chaturmukha Brahma cannot know the full of the Vedas. I alone know the whole essence of the Vedas. Vedaihi cha Sarvaihi Ahameva Vedyaha. So there are three strands of ideas and philosophy that flows from this very line. Vedaishcha Sarvai. The whole of the Vedas talk about me. The whole of the Vedas only support me. I alone know the Vedas fully. Yeah. So again, it makes sense why he has put it there, because the previous word is apohanam. He's giving ignorance to us. With our effort through Vedaishcha Sarvai, Ahameva Vedyaha. You can know me from that. And then next he says, but these Vedas are infinite. They are so complicated. But for you to know that Vedas, I'm being so good to you. I'm actually giving tools for you to understand the Vedas properly. And immediately he says, you know what I have done for you? Vedanta Krit. Okay. And then he says, Vedavid Evechaham. So let's take Vedanta Krit. He says, for you to understand the Vedas, I have composed Vedanta Sutras, which is also called Brahmasutra, which is also called Brahmamimamsa, which is also called Shariraka Sutra. And we spent 2.5, 3 months actually talking about the first 5 sutras, the Pancha Adhikarini as it's called, about Vedanta Sutra and how it is the supreme code of Vedantic philosophy. What Badarayana or Veda Vyasa has said in those 564 aphorisms six darshanas of Indian philosophy, and all the 6 darshanas have
Although we
taken.
lost you for a few seconds just before.
Okay.
Can you repeat whatever you said? Just
Yeah, so the Veda Vyasa, did you hear the about Veda Vyasa and Brahmasutra?
yeah. You were when just talking about Badarayana.
Sudarshan?
Yeah, we heard that. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Vedanta Sutras, as you know, is composed by Badarayana or Vyasa. We spent 3 months talking about the first 5 sutras or adhikaranams. But just to remind you, Vedantic school of philosophy is one among the 6 schools of Indian philosophy. And all the 6 schools take their inspiration from the Vedas. Vedanta Sutra and the Vedantic philosophy is put forth by Vedavyasa, who is considered by many Vaishnavas as the incarnation of Vishnu himself. And he comes down and he gives this Vedanta school of philosophy, which according to Vedavyasa is the final say of the Vedas. Yeah. And then he says, look, I have composed the Vedanta Sutra so that you can use this to understand the Vedas. But I'm going to give you a small print here. I'm going to give you a small print and remind you, Vedavid Ahamevacha. Okay, he says that with Vedanta Krit, Vedavid Ahamevacha. So that Vedavid Ahamevacha opens in 2 ways. One is Vedavid Ahameva, Vedavid Eva Cha Aham. So what does that mean is, Vedavid Ahameva means I know all the Vedas. So that we have seen in the previous verse. The second meaning is Vedavid Eva Cha Aham means I know only the Vedas, but I did not compose the Vedas. Okay. I have given you Vedanta Sutras to understand the Vedas, but I'm telling you here, Vedas are Apaurishaya, they are uncomposed. Even I have not composed the Vedas. I've given you Vedanta Sutras to interpret that. So that's a very puzzling statement that he has made. Vedavid eva cha aham. And in the Vedantasutra, he composed a very important aphorism called Na Vilakshanatvad Asya Tatatvam Cha Shabdat. And we have studied this. We have done one session on the Vedas and how it is Aporushaya. Aporushayatvat Vedasya. Okay. To bring home that message again, that Vedas stand in a slightly different pedestal compared to other composed scriptures. Even I have not composed the Vedas, he says. So I forgot to put a question mark there because I want to open this for debate and discussion, and then we go to the next slide and we finish the talk. So why is it acceptable for us to say God did not create the Vedas? Or is it acceptable or is it not acceptable? What is our view here?
I think knowledge is Veta iti Vedaha. So God himself is Veda. So how can he, because he himself is Veda, how can he write or create it? He himself is Veda.
Okay, thank you. That's interesting. Anybody else?
Madhu, I think the Vedas talk about him, and so
Sudarshan, I lost you there.
yeah, Vedas talk about him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if something is talking about, it can't be the same, isn't it? It has to be different.
Why, sir? I can talk about myself and say how handsome I am. There's no problem. Why can't I do that? Yes,
Okay.
I'm just putting it there. Anyway, that's a
But the thing is, if it is, it's more like a guide, or it's more like explaining about the if there is a particular mission, and there is a guidebook about that mission, and so the guidebook is not the mission, isn't it? The guidebook is just to say what is the mission, how does it work.
Yeah. But the guidebook has to be written by somebody, isn't it?
Okay, normally, yeah, guidebooks are written by somebody, but in this case, it is about Veda.
Anybody else? I can see Deval waiting to say something. Deval, go on.
No, I was just going to clarify what the question is, but I think I got it from the discussion. I think I'm with Sheilaji on this one, that God is the Veda, and Veda and what we understand, that is what is revealed.
Okay, so that question. Okay, I'm going to throw back an argument at you and Sheilaji in the best possible way. Is Veda sentient or non-sentient?
Well, knowledge is non-sentient.
Correct. So Veda sentient or non-sentient? If you say Veda is God, then you're saying Vedas are jadas, they are non-sentient. How can non-sentient be a sentient being? Who is Brahman?
Is God non-sentient, Madhu?
Sorry, he is?
Are you saying God is non-sentient?
I'm saying God is sentient, but Vedas are non-sentient. So how
do you say Veda is non-sentient? We said he is God. God is non-sentient. So he can be both.
How can God be non-sentient? How can he be like a stone? How can what is it?
When the sentient and non-sentient come together then only God comes, isn't it?
One could have a different view on that.
Saguna Brahman comes with the sentient and non-sentient combined together.
Okay. Clarify that, Sheilaji, about Saguna Brahman. Clarify that. I didn't quite catch that.
See, Advaya Tattva, we were taught in Bhagavad Gita class, is Krishna, who is one. Then he, becomes four, and then you have said that all these three gunas and Lakshmi and Parvati and all these come. So, if it's God, it is only Mahatattva, not the Mahatattva, Vishnu Tattva, isn't it? So how can it be? It will be everything together.
So now I'm just putting in a challenge here that you are saying Veda and God and Krishna are the same. Yeah, but if you take Veda as a body of Varnas, what is Vedas? Vedas are Varna and Shabdas. Shabdas in particular sequence is the Vedas. Now the Shabda, the Varna.
That means it is created, which means it is not God.
So
no,
if
that is Omkar. Omkar, that's what he said. You know, Madhuji has done a class on Omkar and the Gayatri Mantra and Omkar. In that, everything is there in Omkar. That is what Veda is all. You said, what is that?
Yeah,
Varnas
but what is there before? What is there before is
it is Nirguna Tattva, isn't it? Before. There is nothing before.
I
there
there is
is
so
only-
Sheila ji,
Only the absolute
there
truth
is-
before.
there is the subtle matter, there is Brahman, and then there is absolute time. So these are the three things that are always been there, isn't it? And then he gives, you know, the other lecture that you did, how he does the namantak, rupantak and namantak, whatever transformation. So that if that is the Veda, then Veda is not God.
okay.
By that argument.
Yeah. So I just put it in exactly for this, so that it elicits heated discussion, because that is what is Shastra Abhyasa and Vada and Katha and philosophical discourse is all about. So if Veda is the same as Brahman, then Sheila ji, I still I need the clarification. Vedas are Varnas, and Varnas in a particular sequence are Vedas. Now, Varna is a jada. It is not a sentient thing. So, Varanas are jadas. The purpose of the Vedas is to give us an idea and glorify the infinite auspicious attributes of the Supreme. That is the purpose of the Vedas. So, in one sense, yes, I agree with you in the sense that the Vedas are there. Every letter, every spirit, every word, sentence in the spirit of the Vedas only glorifies his greatness. But how can that make Vedas equal to Krishna? Because Krishna is a sentient being. Veda is a non-sentient jada, which is a sequence of Varanas.
The non-sentient doesn't come into life unless the sentient is there in it. So if you say it's jada, then it's only letters and rupa and nama, that's all.
Yes, so correct. You said right. So the God has to go inside it and give it the non-sentiency. If some jada exists, it exists because there is a sentient being inside it that makes the jada as a jada. So in that sense, God is pervaded all the Vedas, but he stands beyond it. The Vedas also
that is absolute truth. But what is material nature? As you said, that is the the satyam of Brahman, isn't it? The satyam aspect of Brahman existence is also him. So jada, what you call, is also him. It's not something else.
The satyam there is an adjective of the qualities for us to understand. It is there.
All of this what we
there
are
for us to
doing is for us
understand.
to understand. All of this, whatever we are doing, for us to understand and take off the whatever difficulties we are having, or be balanced, equilibrium, and be happy. That's what we are doing this for, and realizing ourselves what we are. We are not the body, we are the sentient being, isn't it? Whatever we are doing through the jada. From this body, when the sentient being comes, then only we can discuss all this. So both the jada and the sentient, it's one, isn't it?
Cannot be one. It would be my argument.
No, it is two, because we are in, two bhavas now. But according to me, it's one.
So
Advaita.
if you say, okay, I think we need to close this, carry on next time. If you say that God also is jada, then you are pulling him down.
No.
Yeah. If you're pulling him down to a stone, which is non-sentient. So that is one view of some schools will categorically deny that, saying that the whole purpose of the Vedas is to glorify the Supreme, and that is it. And once we bring him into the material platform or equate him to a jada, you have pulled him down. So having two components of sentience and non-sentient in the same person is impossible. You cannot have two opposite polarities in the same being. This fellow is Satchitananda Vigraha, full stop. Yeah. Whereas the Vedas, the purpose of the Vedas is for us mortals to know about him. We need to have some instruments to know about him. So that is there for our contemplation. Yeah. So there is a Bhagavata verse which we have spoken so many times about all the eternal entities always constantly dependent on the Supreme, including the Vedas. Vedas are always eternal, but the eternality of the eternal Vedas is eternally dependent on the Supreme, who is transcendent from non-sentient beings. So that is one view. And the challenge there from the view saying that God has both sentient and non-sentient components would be, if he has got a non-sentient component, that is a defect. God has got no defects. So when we have a non-sentient aspect to it, it becomes a defect on the table for discussion. So we are going slightly tangentially here. What I was, my view there and the question that I was posing for us to think about is, why did Krishna say that he did not compose the Vedas? And Shilaji is saying, because he is Vedas himself. And Devalji then made some arguments to say that it cannot be. Yeah. So now how do you square this circle? Why did Krishna say that I did not compose the Vedas? If he is so omnipotent and he can do everything, with every creation, he can also create the Vedas, isn't it? So one explanation there, I'll just give you that explanation for us to think about in the next class, is Data yata purvam akalpayat. So if the creation is an eternal cycle, there was never a point that creation did not happen, and there will never a point that creation will come to an end. And with every creation, this sequence of varanas that is there in the Supreme's mind comes out as Vedas with every creation, starting with Om, then Vyahriti, then Gayatri, then Purushottama, then the three Vedas and all the Agamas. It comes out from the Omkara verse. Everything is compressed in those three Varanas, and it expands. So that is how it happens. Now the problem there is, if you say God has actually composed the Vedas, then the next question is, in which creation did he compose the Vedas? That is the problem of philosophy that I was getting at, is in which creation. There must have been a first creation where God said, okay, this is my first creation. I am going to create the Vedas now, and it is going to go. Where is the first creation in Vedic philosophy? There was never a point where there was no creation. It is an eternal cycle. So that is one argument there. The Nyaya school, for example, the Nyaya school of philosophy, their view is that Supreme Being composed the Vedas. Yeah, he composed the Vedas is the Nyaya school. The Vedanta school is Aporushayatvad Vedasya, that God did not compose the Vedas. So it is on that basis here Krishna has said, Veda Videva, I know all the Vedas, but Vedanta Krit. He could have said Veda Krit. He didn't say Veda Krit. He said Vedanta Krit, but Veda Vid. Okay, so I just wanted to contrast those two concepts, but I'm really pleased that there was I wouldn't say heated, but a very animated discussion about, is Vedas the same as the Supreme or not? Is God has sentient and non-sentiency to him or not? So these are very fascinating concepts for discussion. So perhaps maybe we can continue on another occasion. So moving on to the next slide. So he has said Vedanta Krit Vedavid Evechaham. Yeah. And then so these Vedas and Vedanta Sutras, what have they gone to say? What is the essence of the Vedanta and Vedas? So that is the next 5 verses. Yeah. So as I said, every line is linked to logically to the next verses. So the next verses he says Vedanta Krit Veda Videvechaham, and then Dvaimau Purusho Loke Kshara Akshara Evacha. And the 5 verses, which is we all know is the essence of Vedic philosophy, that all 3 acharyas undisputedly have agreed that these 5 are the core verses of the entire Vedic philosophy. So I think we will have time to do justice to his in the new year. And I just wanted to remind you all, next week we have a fantastic program that's lined up. So the itinerary is almost done, and the timelines and stuff like that. So Shushrut Kulkarni, who is the master of the event, is going to send everything within the next few days. We've got a 2 hours program on Gita Jayanti next Sunday. As you know, 25th is the Gita Jayanti, which is the Ekadasi. And now we have all fixed on a Sunday to meet up and contemplate and ask these controversial and also very colorful and also deep questions. So we should hold Gita Jayanti for next Sunday. And in the new year, completely refreshed, having read 15 verses of Gita and celebrated Gita Jayanti, then we say, Vedanta Krit Veda Videvecha Aham, what is the essence of that Veda? Is what Krishna is going to now summarize in the next verses. So we'll leave it for next week. So I thank again for all the very, very interesting discussions and contributions, and we can go for any question and answers that might be there. Next, Krishna Pranamastu. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Madhu. I think, yeah, as Madhu said, next week we have Gita Jayanti celebration, same time, but there'll be a bit of more different structure to that, which I've sent the program already. Maybe I'll repeat it again, resend the program again. So by all means, if you can forward it, it's for the wider community as well. Forward it to all your friends, relatives, and being Zoom, anybody can attend from anywhere, from America, India, everywhere. And please forward it and bring more people for the event next Sunday. Yeah, any questions, please?
So everybody shell shocked, Sudarshan, so that's good. So
we had a lot of discussion as we are going through. It was not just a lecture and then questions. We had so many questions and answers and discussions as we went through. We got any questions?
Yeah, absolutely. Sudarshan, I lost you again for a few minutes. Yeah. Shushrut, you had something to say?
No, it's fine. I think it was just part of that discussion, but I think we've had a long discussion on the that topic, so we'll leave it for the moment.
Yeah, so I think the whole concept, so it all comes to Vivarta, Parinama, Veda Abeda, Tattvavada. So there are all the various strands of philosophy that is there. So that is what makes the Sanatana Dharma very interesting. So for example, Vivarta is Advaita, Parinamavada is Vishishta Advaita, then Tattvavada is Dvaita. Then there is this Veda Abeda Vada, which is a complex philosophy and a controversial philosophy. Now, and that is exactly the reason why I've invited Mohandas Prabhu from Hungary to talk to us about this Veda Abeda Vada, which is a slightly different philosophy. In first week he's coming in on the 10th of January, and hopefully he'll be able to enlighten us as what is that version, or how do they interpret the Vedas from the Veda Abeda philosophy, which will be very interesting for us to hear. And I would honestly ask everyone to again participate in that external seminar of actually asking challenging questions and controversies, because that is the only way in which we can all gather extra information and make it more interesting. Okay, Suresh.
Yeah, Madhu, just a question on Vaishwanara.
Can't hear.
A bit more louder, please, Suresh.
What's wrong with this?
We can't hear Suresh.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, now, fine.
Yeah, so the question, Madhu, is on the Vaishwanara principle. In the sense, is it samanvaya only for digestive or dissolving or destructive component of it? Or is it much wider and relates to all aspects of the Supreme?
Yeah, very nice, very, very important question, Suresh. I think it's all aspect. The Samanvaya there is all aspect, because I didn't dwell on that word. Vaishwanaraha, the core etymology is Vishwa Nara Sambandhitvat, is the etymology for Vaishwanaraha. Vaishwanaraha equals Vishwa Nara Sambandhitvat. Vishwa means the whole of existence. Nara means all the jivas. Sambandhitvat means he is related to them. As who? As Bimbarupa. Okay, so the Vishwa Nara Sambandhitvat is directly related to Antaryamitva of all the jivas that are there. So it has a universal application, and it is the beauty of that is you can apply that Vaishwanara in various aspects. So if you apply it as the gastric fire principle, it sits very well. But in other Upanishads that I listed, it actually talks about Katha Upanishad will talk this Vaishwanara is inside this Hridaya. He is actually the same Vaishwanara who is also called Vamana, is inside the Madhya, and around that Vamana are all the Abhimani Devatas who are doing this work for the body. And the Upanishad goes on to say those Abhimani Devatas are not there to serve you, they are there to serve the Supreme, who is there in your middle of your body. And it goes on and explains that as well. So it has universal application, absolutely.
Thanks.
And does Pralaya come in that, Madhuji?
In what?
In the fire, Vaishwanara?
So Vaishwanara, you could, so when he says, say for example, there is a word there, isn't it? Pachami annam chaturvidam.
Yeah, that is for food. Yeah.
Yeah, so that annam, the word annam is again very, very significant there, and we didn't have time to,
Panchabhutas, yeah.
so, and we didn't have
yeah, yeah.
So we didn't have time to go through what does that annam actually means. So annam has different meanings, Shilaji. One annam is the food that we eat. Yeah. Whereas if you go to Taittiriya Upanishad actually gives the definition of annam, and it says the supreme being is called annam. Adyate atticha bhutani tasmat tad annam tad uchchata iti is the Upanishad saying in Taittiriya Upanishad talking about that annam. Annam means adyate atticha. Adyate means upajivya, which means that on which everything is dependent is called annam, because we are dependent on food for our sustenance. Similarly, the jivas are dependent on this supreme being for their sustenance. So he is called annam. The second way of looking at annam is adyate atticha bhutani. So that means he eats everything in pralaya. So everything becomes his annam in pralaya, and that is why he is also called annam. So it's a beautiful word, of course, primarily denotes the supreme and brings home the message of upajivyatva or dependence, and that in pralaya he consumes everything. So you're right, yes.
Thank you.
Harish, you had something.
Harish, any questions?
Harish?
Oh, no, I'm good. I'm good, Madhuji.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Madhu. If you do not have any questions, we'll finish the session. Madhu, thanks, and give a big hand to Madhu, please. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madhu.
Thank you.
So we'll
Thank
see
you,
you next
Madhuji.
week. Yeah. Next week, please spread the word. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, Madhu.
Thank you, Madhu.
Bye.
Thank you.